The Fall of the House of Usher is a story that there are many different interpretations of, and it's hard to say that one interpretation is right and the rest aren't. So what I want to do is I want to go over a couple of the main different interpretations of what's going on in this story and tell you which one I find most interesting. Just a warning, this is, pretty dark. The interpretations here, especially the one that I find most interesting, pretty sick, but if you've read this story, which please read the story before you watch this video, you understand it's a pretty twisted story anyway. So, let's start with one of the main important symbols we have in this story, which is the house itself. The house is highly personified. In fact, the house itself becomes a character. Think of how many times that the house is described as having eye-like windows. Well, that goes with personification. If something has eyes, then it also has a soul, since the eyes are the window to it. So this house seems to have so much of a history and so much of a presence that it becomes a character. Our unnamed narrator, as soon as he looks at the house, he feels a sense of dread just kind of pervade him. This kind of goes with the house's personality. Um, there's a song in here called "The Haunted Palace," and this song it's very interesting. It's a work within a work, which here this story actually has two pieces of literature embedded in it. One is the song "The Haunted Palace," and the other piece we'll look at in a minute. It's the Sir Lancelot tale. But as far as the Haunted Palace, this gives us, the reader, a little bit of a hint of the history of the Usher house. As far as the Haunted Palace talks about a house and a family inside the house that lived lives of glory. This is at the beginning of the song, everything is bright, cheerful, glorious. So this is a family and its house in the prime of their time. However, the song says that through secret sin, and we don't know what it is, all it says is that evil things with robes of sorrow enter into this house and bring with them destruction that just spreads throughout the house, and stays. So the house that we have described at the beginning of the song is much different than the house at the end. The house at the end is completely bleak, and the inhabitants within are also living lives of despair. This story, the song, correlates very well with the House of Usher. It doesn't say that the Haunted Palace is the House of Usher, but in the song, it says that the windows, it's that same eye-like presence of the windows that we see in the House of Usher. In fact, in the song, it's neat because the eyes are the window to us, the reader. Through the window, we look and we see at first the happy families inside the house, inside the palace, and then later on we look in the windows and we see how it's changed. Let's talk about two of the main interpretation. Well, there's one interpretation in the story that's very popular. I don't know how much I enjoy it, but it's definitely out there. Many people think that the Fall of the House of Usher is a tale of vampirism, and there's support for this. If you look at Roderick Usher, Roderick is a man who was physically wasting away. Several times it describes that physically he is deteriorating. Also, it talks about how Roderick is possessed of super senses. This, though, is very common with Poe narrators. It's not new that Poe will have characters who complain of hypersensation. Roderick's, though, includes a sensitivity to daylight. Well, you watch some Buffy the Vampire Slayer or other vampire trope stuff, you know that sensitivity to sunlight is a trait of vampirism. I think it gets a little more interesting when you look at the vampire, when you look at Madeline. As far as if it's not Roderick who's the vampire, it could be Madeline. Well, she does come back from the dead after several days. In fact, it may be 7 days. I don't remember exactly how many, but she does come back to life momentarily, which could mean that she's returned from the dead as a vampire, as part of the undead. Uh, Also, Roderick. Some critics think that Roderick's preparation of Madeline's body, his entombment of her body, shows that he knows that she'll be coming back. Think about how many obstacles Madeline must go through to return. There is the heavy door that takes several people, it seems, to even open. Madeline has no problem when she returns getting through that door. There's the lid that they place over. There just seems to be a lot of preparation. It seems to be, pardon the pun, it seems to be overkill on making sure that her body is secure. Roderick is also very afraid after Madeline has died. He seems to know that it's not over. He seems to know that she will be coming back, that the business is not complete. And the narrator tries to distract him from this. Um, so that's kind of the vampire take. Let me talk about one of the interpretations I find most interesting, but it's also very disturbing, is that this is a story of divine or natural punishment for a secret sin of the House of Usher, the entire house, including Roderick. Let's look at the story of Sir Lancelot. Uh, in the story, we have the knight who is barred from the hermit's dwelling, and he wants to gain entrance into the hermit's dwelling. And after he has a little bit to drink, he decides that he will break down the hermit's door by force. He'll gain entry because he says that he feels the rain on his shoulders, and he knows that there's a storm coming behind him. So he takes out his mace and he beats down the hermit's door and breaks in and gains entry. Let's play around with this now. We're going to put on our Freud lenses, okay? We've got in this description, we've got some very, very, I would argue, rape charged images. Think about the phallic image of the mace. A phallic image would be an image that's representative of male genitalia. That mace that he uses, that the knight uses to bust down the door forcibly to gain entry where the hermit does not want him to come. Also, it talks about how the knight is afraid of the storm that's behind him. Well, if you take this story to be a tale of secret sin being punished by nature or by divinity because of its grotesqueness, then what if Roderick Usher uh, is guilty of the sin of incestuous rape of Madeline? Think about it. There are several indicators here that the House of Usher is dwindling. In fact, we know that Madeline and Roderick are it. They are all that's left of this house. And once Roderick and Madeline are dead, the House of Usher will be no more. I wonder if this is the storm that Roderick feels coming behind him, and I wonder if this is the motivation for why he feels he must break down, he must enter forcibly into the hermit's dwelling that's barred from him, if he did, if this is a tale of Roderick raping his sister, twin sister. Like I said, it's kind of sick, but the support for this interpretation goes further. In the story of Sir Lancelot, when the knight gains entry, there's the dragon that he very easily defeats, and the prize is a shield. Well, if you study some medieval literature, you find that it's very popular for a sigil to be inscribed on a shield. And a sigil would be basically the crest of a family. So, if Roderick feels the pressure of reproduction before you die, so the family that you are the last male heir of continues on, it seems interesting that in the story, the knight breaks down, gains entry, and his prize is a shield. And I wonder if this is symbolic of the family name that Roderick would hopefully win, the family name that would continue on. It seems like the ushers are cursed. It talks about how um, a few people interpret this to be representative of a couple things. There's a line that talks about how the family tree, that it seems like there's only a few people at any time in the Usher family's history. It seems like there's only a couple of members in line of direct descent. Some people take that this is the family tree is does not have enough branches. Some people though take it to mean that there's just not a lot of ushers alive at any given time. It's not a family that flourishes. There's just enough ushers to carry on the name. And here we see that basically the name is almost dead. It's died out, and we see it completely die out towards the end. Um, the idea of punishment by either supernatural punishment or punishment by nature continues because we have the green glow and we have this storm that rolls in at the very climax when Madeline returns. Also, when the house falls apart, when it divides and crumbles, um, the the ground itself swallows up and removes all traces of where the house was. It's almost like the ground drags the Usher family down to hell, or at least removes its existence from the face of the earth. There's nothing left. The bog just reclaims the house completely. Now, the last thing I want to say about it is with this interpretation of if this is a tale of secret sin and that sin being incestuous rape, some people may explain Madeline's return to life, and this is pretty disturbing, but some people may suggest that Madeline, uh, it's not actually her returning to life, it's actually her unborn child. Some people may argue that Roderick was successful in acquiring an heir, but because Madeline just wasted away, maybe because of the shock of the event, it seems like the life of that unborn child may come back to destroy its father. This would be almost like the family itself destroying itself. Roderick is the twin brother to Madeline. It seems fitting that the child would end uh, the family's legacy completely. Now, there's a little bit of a reach, but um, I don't think it's any more of a reach than a vampire tale. So, this story, though, is a great story to play with. You can see this story. You can experiment with lots of different critical lenses of interpretation. So, discussion board, feel free to tell me what you think. You do not have to agree with the interpretations that I've given. You may have your own interpretation. Just validate it. Tell me what you think. The literature for next week we'll talk about soon. Take care.